Well, the last time we were together, I was cutting out these boards that are kind of curved on the front and the rear, and I used my table saw to do this to what is called a cove cut. And then I rounded off the outside with my router. Well, these were sawn out of this 1.75 inch thick, 8.5 inch wide board. So the ends of these boards are not square. So I'm going to pull this away just a little bit, and then the end of my protractor, I'm going to kind of line that up with the face of my joint and then step that back just a little bit and kind of get a feel for what would be a square angle for the end of this board. Somewhere in there. So I set this curve in my framework there. I can use a square and double check. That's going to be pretty close there. I can run this through my saw. I want to come right about to this corner. It is something that's going to drive you nuts if you are on the safety police bandwagon. And safety is a good thing, don't get me wrong, I understand all that. But this is something that would be a disclaimer, don't try this at home type of thing. But it's what I'm going to do. I have got it set up because this is on a curve and I'm trying to figure out how to get this to give me a square cut. This is what I've come up with. I've got two slats here clamped to my fence that I can put it in and keep this position. Now granted, it can slide away. And that's where the danger is. If this was to slide away, I would not only ruin my board, I could have a wreck. You know, this is not #1 safety thing. But if I keep pressure up against that, I can run this past, get my clamps out of the way, I can run this past, keep my hands up out of the way and go past, and I should be able to get that square cut. So I've got to adjust my fence in and out a little bit, but I think I'm pretty close. This brings up something that I just had a conversation with a fellow that stopped by this morning to get some air in a tire. And never met the fellow before, a younger man, and he was doing some lawn work. And he had a front tire on his lawnmower that was flat. Asked me if I had some air. I did, and we just got to visiting and what all. Well, he knew a fella who was a superintendent in a school, fairly local here, and was on the verge of retiring when I met him. He brought some buggy wheels over, and I did some repairs on them, got them finished, and I never heard from him again. And this has been, come to find out, about 8 years ago. I knew it was a while ago. But I just set them aside, you know, somewhere something's going to happen and I'm going to figure out what this story is. Today I figured out what that story was. This young man shared that he was a superintendent and he retired on the last day of May. And the first day of June, first day of retirement, he had a four-wheeler with a spray apparatus on it, and he was doing some custom spraying on a place that he had never been before. First day of retirement. And as he was spraying on this unfamiliar terrain, he came up to a cliff, and one of the wheels of his four-wheeler went over the cliff and took the whole four-wheeler spraying apparatus over the cliff, and that day he died. That's why he never came back to pick up his wheels. I never did put that story together until today. But the point of this story is you wake up every day and it has a risk sometime. Waking up and living involves a risk to some degree. What I'm going to do here involves some risk, but I'm not afraid of a risk within some calculations, and I think all of us do that sometime. You know, this was not a calculated risk that he took, knowing that that was going to be his last day. I'm going to do this, and I'm not calculating that I'm going to lose a hand. I'm going to do everything I have in my awareness package to make sure that doesn't happen. And if something doesn't happen, my hands are going to be out of the way, and if I lose the board or I ruin the board, I make a new one. But the whole point is, risk is just a part of life. A calculated risk. And this is one of those things. I think it is a calculated risk for me. As I do this, and I know that it is unstable, but I think if I have my head in the game, keep my hands out of the saw blade, and if I lose it, I lose it. But hopefully not my hands. So there is risk involved in what I'm about to do. Well, I snuck it by 4 times. So this is in the transition of a type of an S-curve. We're concaved here, and then we go convex as we go up to the back. So I have a little transition here that I've got to shape from this panel that I just carved out to this framework. I am a little thick here, which allows me to make this transition. So I'm going to do this type of a transition and put this into a downward curve. Something like so. Well, this part of the body framing that I have that's original off of the old 11-passenger body is the back curve that comes vertical from the main frame. Well, this cross piece here is the cross piece that I'm fitting this back curve into. And this is that triangular shaped cross frame. The main frames are gone here, of course. But this little panel here is the leftover portion of that curved panel that we just made and are about to install. Well, it has some irons on this back curve. These are some bumper irons that the luggage bumps up against. These are some hinge irons. This one is missing, but I have it still. But underneath this center hinge iron, there is a screw here. Then you can see we're notched out here, for there are 2 1/8 by 1 flat strap irons that come down through the center of the floorboards, besides the ones that are on the vertical frames. So we have, looks like about 5 screws. One here, one inside each of these inset irons, one in the center, and one out here. And the reason I kind of look for the placement of these screws is because there are other pieces of iron that come down and intersect here, and I don't want to have a screw underneath a place where a bolt or another screw comes. So I'm kind of figuring out how these all interact with each other. So there is a center screw right in the middle, and that hinge iron actually goes through the framework, so the screw can be underneath the tip of that iron. So we're 35.5, so we're going to be at 17 3/4. We can put a screw there. And then it looks like there's about 10 inches between these center irons that come up through the center and support the weight of the passengers. So we can put a screw just inside of those irons. And then it looks like we probably just split the difference somewhere about so for the other screws. And out on the end, it looks like we have a couple screws here, but we have that 8x1 flat strap comes here, which has screws in there as well. So I need to take those irons off of the old framework and figure out where those screws are going to go. So again, so we don't intersect and interfere with each other. Well, I do need to run these through the forge and straighten them up, fit these curves, but this gives me a little idea where the screws through the iron are going to be. So the screws through the wood, I want to be offset from those. This one's bent up quite a little bit worse. Somewhere in here. So I want screws in between. Well, you'll notice I not only just filled the screws, but I filled this little fine line joint crack between the panel and the frame. When this is painted, it's going to look like it's all one continual piece. Well, I do have to straighten out these irons. They've got some pretty tight kinks and bends in them, so I'm going to heat them up in the forge to do that adjustment. But this again allows me to know where the screws are going to go, so I can put my preliminary light brads and get these boards nailed into place before I screw the strap iron down. And then there's 2 more that run down through the center. Those are missing, so I'll have to make those new. We'll get into that next time. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.